On this Thursday night, not guilty. All 5 men at the Hockey Canada sex assault trial learn their fate.
She ended up being confronted in court with some inconsistencies in her statement.
The judge's reasons and the reaction inside and outside the courtroom. 3 workers trapped inside a mine in BC. The enormous amount of debris blocking them. The U.S. Justice Department meets with Jeffrey Epstein's longtime accomplice, what Ghislaine Maxwell might want in exchange for her testimony. No end in sight for Gaza's hunger crisis. The finger pointing as Palestinians starve. Plus, he was a pop culture powerhouse.
Well, let me tell you something, brother!
The complicated legacy of wrestling legend Hulk Hogan.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. A high-profile sexual assault trial involving 5 former members of Canada's World Junior Hockey team has ended with not guilty decisions for each of the accused. The trial followed years of police investigations, a multi-million-dollar civil settlement, and intense scrutiny of hockey culture. An Ontario Superior Court justice delivered the decision in a packed London courtroom this afternoon, clearing Michael McLeod, Alex Formenton, Carter Hart, Dillon Dubé, and Cal Foote of all charges. Stating, "I do not find the evidence of EM, the woman at the center of the allegations, to be either credible or reliable."
So today the accused have been declared not innocent, but simply not proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Those in institutional leadership roles, this case should be a wake-up call that more is needed from you to prevent sexual violence.
The public narrative of this event was, until this trial, one-sided and untested. Now the criminal process has shown it to be false.
We have team coverage from London tonight, including reaction from those outside the courthouse. But we begin with Jeff Semple, who was inside the courtroom when the decision was read. Jeff.
Carolyn, there were gasps, hugs, and tears inside that jam-packed courtroom as the judge read out her ruling. Those 5 accused hockey players not guilty on all counts. As they left the courthouse, likely for the last time, the 5 former Hockey Canada teammates couldn't conceal their relief.
At the start of this trial, Cal Foote walked into this courthouse, an innocent man, and he walks out today exactly that.
In the end, the trial came down to a question of credibility. Justice Maria Carosia pointed to inconsistencies and holes in EM's story, beginning with how she described her level of intoxication and the hockey players' behavior at the bar where they met, which appeared to contradict this security footage. EM left the bar with the accused, Michael McLeod. They went to this hotel for consensual sex. McLeod then sent this message to a group chat inviting other players to join. They arrived and engaged in numerous sexual acts, which EM said were not consensual. EM testified she never said no, and they didn't physically force her, but that she went along because she was afraid. But the judge rejected that. In this case, I have found actual consent not vitiated by fear.
She's obviously very disappointed with the verdict.
EM's lawyer spoke on her behalf.
The worst possible outcome is to feel disbelieved. It's a gutting experience that no one deserves. That's why today's verdict is so devastating.
I was hoping that the judge would look into that question of whether they took the necessary steps to ascertain that they had her full, enthusiastic, uncoerced, unintimidated consent. But it doesn't look to me like that's what happened.
The courthouse has been a site of regular rallies in support for EM. Advocates say her testimony has inspired courage for victims of sexual assault.
There have been a substantial rise in disclosures of sexual violence.
But they fear today's ruling will have a chilling effect. The trial has garnered international attention, and lawyers for the accused thank the judge for not succumbing to public pressure.
Public perception was shaped by a one-sided narrative.
The 5 accused were all playing professional hockey at the time charges were laid, but their contracts were not renewed.
The damage to Mr. McLeod's reputation and his career has been significant. But today's decision begins to restore what was very unfairly taken away from him.
Both London Police and Hockey Canada faced significant criticism for their initial investigations into these allegations, and both organizations have now released written statements. And Hockey Canada says that important progress has been made since 2022, and there is still more work to be done as we drive systemic change within our national winter sport. For their part, London Police also releasing a statement commending EM for showing strength and courage in coming forward and enduring the trial process. London Police also noting, Carolyn, that incidents of sexual violence remain significantly underreported.
Jeff, it's taken more than 7 years to get to this point, but the ripples from this case could continue for a while. What could be next?
Well, legally speaking, the Crown could decide to appeal this case, and the 5 accused hockey players could also decide to take legal action either against the Crown or against EM. But legal experts I've been speaking to here say those avenues are possible, but not probable, that it's likely this case ends here today. Now up to those hockey players and EM to try and pick up the pieces and move forward.
Jeff Semple in London, Ontario. Thank you. And the NHL has come out saying even though the allegations were not found to be criminal, they are unacceptable. And all 5 players are ineligible to play in the league while they determine next steps. Meanwhile, reaction outside the courtroom today was emotional, many gathering in support of the complainant. Karen Lieberman has more. Karen.
Even before the decision was delivered, activists, advocates, and supporters of EM were here calling for changes to a system they say that isn't designed with survivors in mind. The lack of understanding of trauma responses, I think, in the courtroom has been really, really clear. So we also want to make clear to survivors beyond EM that we believe them.
Protesters voicing support for the complainant in the case gathered regularly outside court.
You know, the fact that we live in a culture still where things that should be abnormal are normalized, that is upsetting.
They hoped for a different outcome. This one, they say, is a setback and will have an impact on survivors of sexual violence.
I'm a survivor myself of sexual assault. I was fortunate enough to see the person go to prison. But I know that not everyone is that fortunate. And I think that the justice system is a little broken, and we need to support those survivors who have the courage to speak out.
I feel like the court system can be very traumatizing when you have to relive and you're getting questioned and people are looking at you like you've done something wrong.
Advocates say there are barriers for those who choose to report sexual assault to police, and further challenges should those cases make it to the criminal justice process.
The justice system isn't set up for them to receive justice. It isn't set up for them to be believed and to be heard, right? And so what we want survivors to hear, what we want community to know is that there are people that believe them. You have your local sexual assault centers all across Ontario.
Also on hand outside the courthouse today, a handful of protesters holding signs indicating #HimToo. They said the ex-hockey players were falsely and unfairly accused. Karen
Lieberman, thank you. If you or someone you know needs help, endingviolencecanada.org is a website where you can find provincial and territorial resources, including sexual assault centres, crisis lines, and support services. In northern BC, 3 workers are now in their 3rd day trapped underground at a gold and copper mine. And it's been 2 days since 2 cave-ins cut off contact with them. Specialized equipment is being used to try to reach the workers. Global's Neetu Garcha is headed to northern BC tonight. Neetu.
Carolyn, we are near the Yukon-BC border on our way to the site where rescue teams have assembled as those 3 drillers remain trapped. The teams are using specialized drones to determine the conditions underground. Newmont, the company which operates the mine, says there's debris piled up to 8 meters high and up to 30 meters long, blocking access to the underground area. It says crews deployed to the scene are using a remote-controlled scoop to remove the debris and regain access while working to restore communication with the trapped workers. According to Newmont, the contractors, one from BC, one from Manitoba, and one from Ontario, are in a specialized refuge space that can accommodate up to 16 people. These are typically narrow steel chambers that include oxygen supplies, air conditioning systems, and monitors for toxic gases, along with emergency food rations, water, and a small toilet.
In this design is for 16 people, lasting you 48 hours. We've got 3 people in that refuge base specifically. So there's ample food for them to continue.
The mine uses a method called block caving, described on the company's website as a deliberate collapsing of rock to extract copper and gold. Here's more from Ontario's chief mine rescue officer.
They've brought in drones to be able to fly into the area to do an extensive inspection. It's a flying drone that they can send in, and it's equipped with a 360-degree camera and lighting.
This all started on Tuesday when there were 2 unexpected collapses described as falls of ground inside an underground access tunnel. The drillers made contact after the first one, confirming they made it to the refuge area safely, but the second one cut off communication, and they haven't been heard from since. At this point, the company seems hopeful there will be a relieving end to this story, but there's still no word on how long that could take. Carolyn?
Neetu Garcha, thank you. Prime Minister Mark Carney appointed Canada's first Arctic ambassador today as he aims to strengthen ties with the North. Virginia Mears from Iqaluit will assume the role. Carney made the announcement as he kicked off a summit with Inuit leaders in Inuvik, Northwest Territories. They're discussing Ottawa's controversial Building Canada Act, introduced to respond to Canada's trade dispute with the U.S. Bill C-5 grants Ottawa temporary powers to sidestep environmental laws and regulations to fast-track projects deemed to be in the national interest. The law has prompted criticism that the government is prioritizing major projects over Indigenous rights and environmental protections. Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc was in Washington today, meeting with U.S. Senators and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick ahead of President Trump's latest tariff deadline.
We're encouraged by the sentiment that many of the legislators, the senators, expressed in terms of their shared desire to see more stability and predictability in the relationship with the United States.
LeBlanc says he remains hopeful for a potential agreement with progress on tackling fentanyl and border security. More discussions are set for next week ahead of the August 1st deadline, when Trump has threatened to increase tariffs on many Canadian exports to 35%. There are new developments around President Trump's connection to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Many are questioning why the Trump administration is approaching Epstein's convicted accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. Jackson Prosco reports.
The Jeffrey Epstein story keeps drawing closer to President Donald Trump.
The truth is coming out, and the cover-up is crumbling.
In Florida, Justice Department officials met with convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime accomplice, as the White House tries to downplay concerns it's hiding details about Epstein's links to high-profile figures, including the president.
Ms. Maxwell answered every single question. She never stopped, she never invoked a privilege, she never declined to answer.
But Trump's interests are still front and center. Maxwell met with Todd Blanche, Deputy U.S. Attorney General, who previously served as the president's personal attorney. Now serving 20 years in prison, Maxwell may be seeking a reduced sentence or even a pardon in exchange for testimony.
Release the damn files. What else?
The Wall Street Journal reports that in May, Attorney General Pam Bondi told Trump his name was in the Epstein files. The Journal says the files contained what officials felt was unverified hearsay about many people, including Trump.
Well, everybody knows that he knew Epstein at some point. They're both in New York. I mean, there's like video of it. Now, he said this for years, so I don't think any of that's a surprise that he's mentioned the documents.
But earlier this month, the Justice Department announced there were no files and declared case closed. Just last week, Trump denied ever being briefed about his own involvement.
Did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen.
Now Trump's own party is starting to break with him. Republicans joined Democrats in voting to subpoena the files and Maxwell, signaling they want unfiltered access to both. Trump's response? Drum up new conspiracy theories.
Every time they give you a question that's not appropriate, just say, oh, by the way, Obama cheated on the election.
As the Epstein story grows, Trump's approval rating is tanking, down to just 37%, according to the latest Gallup poll. That's nearly an all-time low for both his first and second terms in office. Carolyn?
Jackson Prosco in Washington, thank you. Gaza's hunger crisis is only growing more dire. Coming up, what France has just done as it urges Israel to stop the war in Gaza. French President Emmanuel Macron says France will recognize Palestine as a state. On social media, Macron posted, "The urgent thing today is that the war in Gaza stops and the civilian population is saved. Peace is possible." Macron says the move will be formalized at the United Nations General Assembly in September. Israel has not commented on Macron's decision, which is part of a growing international outcry at the starvation unfolding in Gaza. Photos of malnourished children are emerging from the region, like this 1.5-year-old in Gaza City who weighs just 6 kilograms. Israel and the United Nations continue to blame each other for the deteriorating situation. Redmond Shannon reports, and a warning, this report contains disturbing images.
This malnutrition and hunger is human-made. That much is not disputed. Israel blames the United Nations and Hamas, as does the Israeli and US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which has been distributing aid at 4 hubs inside Gaza for 2 months. A period where the UN says 1,000 people have been killed trying to get aid. The UN, more than 100 aid agencies and at least 25 countries blame Israel for militarizing and placing too many restrictions on the flow of aid. The UN says 6,000 trucks of aid are stuck in Jordan and Egypt. Israel says hundreds of trucks are stuck at the Gaza border. Both blame each other for the hold-up, while Gazans, especially children, suffer a few kilometers away. This grandmother told the World Health Organization her daughter is malnourished and unable to produce breast milk to feed 6-month-old Mohammed. She calls the situation a child famine. Saeed lives with cerebral palsy, which can require a special diet. His mother says he's been surviving on salt and water for 4 days. On Thursday, 3 major news agencies and the BBC said they are concerned that the local freelance journalists they employ in Gaza are struggling to feed themselves and their families. This week, Canada was among 25 countries that jointly demanded Israel ramp up aid. Until more food gets into Gaza, the only option for some is to line up at the kitchens that remain open, where the weakest stand little chance of getting the watery lentil soup. Isn't it shameful? We are starving. Enough is enough, says this man. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
A century-old border feud reignites. Ahead, the deadly clashes between Thailand and Cambodia. At least 12 Thais have been killed and 14 others wounded in violence between Thailand and Cambodia over a disputed border area. Thailand's government claims Cambodia fired rockets into a Thai village and attacked a hospital. Cambodia accuses Thailand of attacking first with heavy weaponry and airstrikes. In Russia, a plane crash has killed all 48 people on board. The burning fuselage of the nearly 50-year-old plane was found in a densely forested area in the country's far east. The flight was operated by a Siberian-based regional carrier. Investigators say it disappeared from radar as it was preparing to land. 5 children are reportedly among those killed. His theatrics in the ring helped make him a household name. Remembering Hulk Hogan, next. One of the most famous wrestlers of all time, Hulk Hogan, has died. The 12-time world champion passed away from heart failure at the age of 71. Hogan helped catapult the world of professional wrestling to pop culture fame in the 80s. Eric Sorensen has more on his controversial life.
In wrestling, there are good guys and bad guys. Hulk Hogan, as in life, was both. Wrestling always had a passionate following. In the 60s, names like Whipper Billy Watson and Gene Kiniski would sell out Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. But in the 1980s, Hulk Hogan arrived, a charismatic, shirt-ripping 6'8" superstar. And when he did this to Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3,
Look at this! He's I don't believe it!
throwing the 500-pound fan favorite to the mat, Hogan and Hulkamania was at the top, transforming a niche entertainment into the cultural behemoth that the WWE would become. Even when Hogan became a wrestling bad guy for a rival company, he was still the biggest name. He starred in films and in commercials.
Would be uncivilized.
The first pro wrestler to make the cover of Sports Illustrated.
But the man born Terry Bollea had many problems too.
He admitted steroid use. He was caught on a sex tape with his friend's wife that was later published. The resulting privacy lawsuit won him a $140 million settlement that brought down the Gawker network of websites. With wrestling known for its prearranged outcomes,
Maybe it's a wrestling angle.
Hogan told The View on ABC many fans thought it was all a put-on.
I didn't do this for profit. You know, it was a horrible decision, low point in my life.
The most important wrestler in the history of the sport. But I think the hero worship, we need to be careful with that because, again, we really don't know the athletes on a personal level.
I said, let Trumpomania run wild!
Hogan was an avowed Donald Trump supporter.
Ow!
But TMZ also caught his racially insensitive remarks about Kamala Harris, years after audio of him using racist slurs got him kicked out of pro wrestling. Controversy often overshadowed his popularity, but among many wrestling fans, young and old, Hulk Hogan will be remembered for putting the theater of pro wrestling on the global stage. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Carolyn Jarvis. Tonight's Your Canada showcases the Rose Deer Hotel in Wayne, Alberta, a shack near Notre-Dame-de-Lourdes in Manitoba, and the La Have River in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. Thanks for watching.